Welcome back. This is the 10th lesson before we've explored how memory forms, how it encodes, how it retrieves, how it can be improved, and how it can create false memories for events that never happened. Today, we're tackling the question we've been circling since part 1. Why do we forget? Not just where you put your keys. Not just the name of that actor you love. But why does a language you once spoke fluently become almost unrecognizable decades later? Why do some memories vanish entirely while others persist for a lifetime? And is forgetting just failure, or is something more interesting happening? Let's get started. Part 1. The Forgetting Curve, Ebbinghaus's Discovery. Let's start at the beginning. In 1885, a German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus did something remarkable. He decided to study forgetting scientifically, using himself as the only subject. He created thousands of nonsense syllables, combinations like ZOK or WX that had no meaning, so prior knowledge wouldn't interfere. He memorized them, then tested himself at different intervals to see how much he forgot. His discovery, the forgetting curve. What Ebbinghaus found was that forgetting is not gradual and steady. It happens fastest immediately after learning, then slows down and plateaus. If you learn something today, you'll forget more of it in the next hour than in the next week. More in the next week than in the next month. The curve is steepest right at the beginning, then flattens over time. This pattern holds for almost all types of material. And it's the foundation of everything we understand about forgetting. Example, the student after final exams. A university student, Sarah, takes a course in Introduction to Psychology. She attends lectures, reads the textbook, and studies for the final exam. On exam day, she knows the material well and scores 85%. The forgetting curve over time. Day 1, exam day, 85% retention. Week 1, she can still explain most concepts, classical conditioning, memory models, brain structures, but some details are fuzzy. Month 1, she remembers the main ideas but forgets specific names. Ebbinghaus? Was that the forgetting curve guy? Year 1, she can tell you that psychology is about behavior and mind but cannot define specific terms. Year 5, she remembers taking the course but recalls almost no content. If asked about classical conditioning, she might say, "Was that the thing with Pavlov's dogs?" Why this happens, the forgetting curve predicts rapid loss immediately after learning, followed by a plateau. Sarah's steepest drop happened in the first weeks after the exam when she stopped reviewing. The core concepts, Pavlov memory, survived longer because they were more meaningful and connected to other knowledge. But specific details vanished quickly. Part 2. Factors that influence retention. But not all memories fade at the same rate. Some stick. Some vanish. Why? Researchers have identified several factors that determine what we retain and what we lose. Factor 1. Type of knowledge. Semantic or conceptual knowledge, the kind that fits into organized networks, is retained much better over decades than episodic details or proper names. Conceptual information integrates into your existing knowledge. It connects to other things you know. It becomes part of a web, and webs are durable. Example, the gradual decline of a language. A man, David, studied French for 4 years in high school. He graduated and rarely used it. 20 years later, he visits Paris. The forgetting curve over decades. Year 1 after graduation, can hold simple conversations, remembers most vocabulary. Year 5, can understand some spoken French, struggles to speak. Year 10, recognizes common words, cannot produce sentences. Year 20, can read simple signs, understands nothing spoken, cannot speak. The real-world experience. In Paris, David reads Sortie and knows it means exit. He sees boulangerie and knows it's a bakery. But when a waiter speaks, he understands nothing. Why? Conceptual knowledge, the meaning of words like bread and exit, is more durable than episodic details of learning. David's French didn't vanish entirely. It settled into a low plateau after years of disuse. The core vocabulary survived because it was deeply encoded and conceptually linked. Example: historical facts versus personal memories. A history teacher, retired for 15 years, reflects on what she remembers. Semantic conceptual. She knows the causes of World War I, alliances, nationalism, assassination, militarism. She can explain them coherently. This knowledge is organized into schemas and connected to other historical events. Episodic proper name. She cannot remember the name of the student who fell asleep in her class every day. She cannot recall which year she taught at which school. She cannot remember the exact date of a specific field trip. Why? Historical concepts are schematic. They fit into organized knowledge structures. Personal episodic details and proper names are non-schematic. They are isolated, arbitrary, and vulnerable to forgetting. The conceptual knowledge endures. The episodic details fade. Factor 2: depth and method of learning. Deep, elaborative processing and distributed practice lead to more stable, long-term retention than massed, shallow cramming. Psychologists sometimes call this permastore, memories that last essentially forever because of how they were encoded. Example: learning to play the piano. Two children learn to play the same piano piece. Child A, who is mass practice, practices for 3 hours on Saturday. By Sunday, has forgotten the middle section. Relearns it next Saturday. Takes months to learn the piece and forgets it quickly afterward. Child B has distributed practice, practices 20 minutes daily. Each day builds on the previous. Sleep consolidates each day's learning. Learns the piece in weeks and remembers it for years. Why? Distributed practice allows consolidation during sleep. Massed practice causes fatigue, interference, and shallow encoding. The distributed learner's knowledge enters permastore. The mass learner's fades rapidly. Factor 3: the remember-to-know shift. Over time, memory for facts can shift from a specific episodic recollection, "I remember learning this," to a general sense of semantic knowledge, "I just know this." Example: the recipe passed down. A woman learned to make her grandmother's spaghetti sauce as a child. Her grandmother taught her by showing, not writing. Initial state: remember. Initially, she remembered the cooking sessions with her grandmother, the smell of the kitchen, the feel of the wooden spoon, her grandmother's voice saying a pinch of oregano. Decades later, the memory becomes procedural one. Now 50, she makes the sauce automatically. Her hands know what to do. She cannot recall specific teaching sessions. She just knows the recipe. Fast, she can list the ingredients and steps, but without any episodic memory of learning them. The shift: the knowledge has shifted from episodic, "I remember grandma teaching me," to semantic procedural, "I know how to make the sauce." The episodic details are gone, but the skill and knowledge persist. Part 3: why do we forget? 2 main causes. So we've seen what gets forgotten and when. But why? What is the actual mechanism? Researchers have identified 2 main causes. A. Decay. Decay is the gradual fading of information from memory over time. Think of it like a chalk mark slowly being erased by wind and rain. Decay is the primary cause of forgetting in short-term memory. Information held in short-term memory, like a phone number you just looked up, will vanish within about 20 seconds if you don't rehearse it. It literally fades away. But for long-term memory, K is not the main story. B. Interference. Interference is the primary cause of forgetting in long-term memory. We don't forget because memories fade away like old photographs. We forget because other information gets in the way. There are two types, and we've actually discussed them before back in Lesson 6 with the example of new Sarah and old Sarah. Let's recap. Proactive interference. Old information interferes with learning or recalling new information. Retroactive interference. New information interferes with recalling old information. Here, give another example involves the interference caused by competing knowledge. For example, a musician learning two similar pieces may experience difficulty in distinguishing between them due to overlapping cognitive representations. A pianist, Elena, is preparing for a recital. She needs to learn two pieces by Chopin, both nocturnes in similar keys, with similar emotional tone and technical demands. The interference disaster massed practice. Monday, practices nocturne in E-flat major for 2 hours. Tuesday, practices nocturne in E-flat minor for 2 hours. Wednesday, attempts to play both. Finds herself starting the minor with the major's opening phrase. Fingers go to the wrong keys. Muscle memory is confused. Why? The two pieces share similar patterns: hand positions, chord progressions, ornamentation. Without separation, the motor programs interfere. She learns neither securely. The space solution. Week 1. Focus entirely on the E-flat major nocturne. Practice daily. Memorize thoroughly. Perform it for friends. Week 2. Begin the E-flat minor nocturne. Before each practice, briefly play through the major once, then focus on the minor. Week 3. Practice both, but in separate sessions, major in morning, minor in evening. Use different practice rooms if possible. The result: Elena keeps the pieces distinct. Each is encoded with its own context, time of day, practice room, emotional focus. Interference minimized. She performs both confidently. Crucial insight. Research by Tulving and Satka suggests that interference often causes retrieval failure, not permanent loss. The information remains stored somewhere in your brain, but it becomes hard to access without the right cues, like trying to find an item in an overstuffed suitcase. The memory is still there. You just can't find it. Part 4. The traumatic memory debate: can memories be repressed? Now we arrive at one of the most controversial and emotionally charged questions in all of psychology. Can traumatic memories be repressed for decades and then accurately recovered? This is not an academic debate. It is a serious topic. It has shaped therapy practices for generations. The claim, traumatic memories can be repressed, pushed into the subconscious, inaccessible to conscious recall for decades and then later recovered, often in therapy, with complete accuracy. Evidence cited by supporters. The existence of subconscious mental activity and implicit memory is well established. Studies on motivated forgetting show people are more likely to forget unpleasant events. Some individuals do not report documented childhood abuse when interviewed as adults. Retrieval cues can sometimes unlock seemingly lost memories. Example: the survivor who forgot the accident. A young woman, Elena, survives a car accident that killed her parents when she was 8. In the years following, she has no memory of the accident itself. She knows her parents died, but the event is a blank. She cannot recall the screech of tires, the impact, the ambulance, anything. The supporter's interpretation: Elena's mind repressed the trauma to protect her from overwhelming pain. The memory is stored but inaccessible. Decades later, in therapy, she might recover fragments: the sound of her mother's voice, the feeling of spinning if the right conditions are created. The motivated forgetting evidence, traumatic amnesia for specific events, especially in childhood, is well documented. The mind's capacity to block out overwhelming experiences is a survival mechanism. But there is another side to this debate, a powerful research-backed counter-argument. The skeptical interpretation. False memories are common. Laboratory studies show it is surprisingly easy to implant vivid, detailed, and confident false memories of events that never happened, like being lost in a mall as a child or witnessing something that never occurred. Memory is constructive. What we recall is not a recording. It is a blend of actual events, prior knowledge, and post-event information. Recovered memories could be constructions, not recoveries. Therapist influence. Some therapeutic techniques, guided imagery, hypnosis, repeated suggestion, memory retrieval exercises may inadvertently encourage clients to construct false memories. The therapist, intending to help, may be planting the very memories they are trying to recover. But there are contradictory data. Many trauma survivors have persistent, vivid memories, flashbulb memories of their trauma. They cannot forget. Most documented abuse victims do recall their abuse. The idea that repression is a common, predictable response to trauma is not supported by all evidence. This debate is not settled. What is settled is this: memory is fallible. Confidence is not accuracy. And memories recovered after years of suggestion, hypnosis, or therapeutic pressure must be treated with extraordinary caution, because the mind is capable of creating memories that feel every bit as real as the truth. Part 5: How Forgetting Affects Thinking, the Bias. Forgetting is not just something that happens to your past. It actively shapes your present decisions, often without you realizing it. Psychologists call this the "what you can't recall doesn't exist" bias. When we make a decision, we base it on what we can remember at that moment. What we cannot recall feels like it was never there, leading to overconfidence and poor choices. Example: the job candidate evaluation. A hiring manager, Priya, is interviewing candidates for a senior position. She interviews 5 people. A week later, she must make a decision. The recall process. Candidate A. Priya easily recalls Candidate A's confident answers, impressive resume, and friendly demeanor. She struggles to remember anything negative. Candidate B. She remembers that Candidate B seemed nervous and stumbled on one question. She cannot recall his strengths. The bias in action. Priya thinks Candidate A had no weaknesses. Candidate B had obvious flaws. A is the choice. She hires Candidate A. The problem: Candidate A's weaknesses were there, she just didn't recall them. He had a history of job hopping, poor teamwork reviews, and a tendency to take credit for others' work. These were mentioned in references, but Priya's memory, biased by his confident interview performance, failed to retrieve them. Candidate B, despite nervousness, had an excellent track record and strong references. Why it happened: Priya's memory retrieval was biased by primacy and recency effects. By effect, Candidate A was more likable, and by confirmation bias, she wanted to like A. The information she couldn't recall at the moment of decision felt like it didn't exist. The consequence: a bad hire based on biased recall, not complete information. Part 6: Recall errors reveal mental organization. Here's a fascinating twist: the ways we forget, the errors we make, actually reveal how our memory is organized. When you mix up 2 similar events, you're not just failing. You're showing the structure of your mental networks. Example: calling a new partner by an ex's name. A man, David, is in a new relationship with Rachel. One evening, he accidentally calls her by his ex-girlfriend's name, Sarah. The embarrassment: Rachel is hurt. David is mortified. He loves Rachel. Sarah is in the past. What this reveals: David's brain has a category node, romantic partner. Sarah, his long-term ex, was the primary occupant of that category for years. When he needs to retrieve Rachel in an intimate context, activation spreads from the romantic partner node to the strongly associated name Sarah. The strong old link competes with the weaker new one. Why it happens, category-based organization. Romantic partner is a schema. Sarah is the prototype, the most strongly associated exemplar. Under conditions of distraction or emotion, the prototype fires instead of the target. The famous Moses illusion, people are asked, how many animals of each kind did Moses take on the ark? Many answer 2. They miss that it was Noah, not Moses. Why? The brain activates the ark and animals schema, and Moses is close enough in the biblical network that the contradiction is overlooked. We process meaning, not exact details, and errors reveal the structure. Conclusion: forgetting is normal, but it biases us. So, let's bring this together. 1. Forgetting follows a predictable curve, steepest immediately after learning, then plateauing. Ebbinghaus discovered this in 1885, and it still holds. 2. Not all memories fade equally. Conceptual, meaningful knowledge lasts longer than isolated, arbitrary details. Distributed practice creates permastore, cramming creates rapid decay. 3. The primary cause of forgetting in long-term memory is interference, not decay. Other information competes, blocks, and disrupts retrieval. Proactive interference, old disrupts new. Retroactive interference, new disrupts old. 4. The debate over repressed traumatic memories highlights the constructive, fallible nature of memory. False memories are real. Confidence is not accuracy. And memories recovered under suggestion must be treated with caution. 5. Forgetting biases our thinking. We treat what we cannot recall as if it never existed, leading to overconfidence, bad decisions, and real-world consequences. 6. But forgetting also reveals how memory works. The errors we make, calling someone by the wrong name, mixing up similar events, show the categorical associative structure of our minds. Forgetting is not failure. It is a natural, predictable, and sometimes useful process. It clears away what we don't need. It prioritizes what matters. It shapes our thinking in ways we don't notice. But understanding forgetting, understanding why it happens, what it affects, and how it biases us, gives us power. Power to learn better. Power to decide better. Power to be humble about what we think we know. Thank you for joining me on this 10-part journey through memory science. Be curious, be humble, and pay attention to what you forget. It's telling you something. See you next time.